So in light of current events, many of us have had to spend time away from exercise or training due to closures, lockdown, or any other circumstances that are out of our control. Truth be told, though things are looking better than they have in recent years, we can't be sure that we won't find ourselves in similar situations in the future. If you're anything like me, one of the worries you have in these circumstances is that you'll lose all of the muscle and strength that you have worked so hard to gain. But is this true? Is this supported by the scientific literature in this subject? Well, in this video I'll be breaking down the current evidence into muscle loss during a hiatus away from the gym or training, and giving you advice about how to approach this situation if you find yourself in the future having to spend some time away from training. If this sounds interesting or something that would be useful to you, please don't forget to hit the like button and sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. So if you're new to the channel, this is Forever Life for Fitness, where I talk about everything that is fitness and ways to improve or optimize your training so that you can reach your goals. Before we delve into the effects of not training, it's important to understand how muscle mass is increased or reduced. If you think of skeletal muscle like a brick wall, muscle protein synthesis is adding bricks to the wall, whereas muscle protein breakdown is the process of removing bricks. And there is a constant tug of war between these two processes. The balance between these two processes is what determines whether you'll maintain, gain, or lose muscle. This is known as the net protein balance. When protein synthesis is greater than protein breakdown for a sustained period, muscle mass increases, which is known as a positive net protein balance, whereas the reverse will lead to a decrease in muscle mass. This is known as a negative net protein balance. And when both these are equal, muscle mass is maintained. So with this being said, your goal during the time away from training is to maintain a positive net protein balance. But I suppose the question is, how do you do that? Well, there are three main factors that are going to affect how much muscle you will lose in any given situation. These are your physical activity, your calorie intake, and your protein intake. So looking at physical activity first. According to a study in 2008, muscle loss from complete disuse occurs at a rate of roughly about 12% per week. This is not going to apply to most of you watching this video, because I imagine that even if you're spending time away from the gym, you're still participating in your activities of daily living. This begs the question, how much muscle do you lose if you continue to do your activities of daily living, but you take time away from training? Well, this has been researched in several studies. In 2018, Ochi and colleagues took 20 trained young individuals and had them participate in 4 weeks training, followed by a 2-week period of no training, followed by another 4 weeks of training. They wanted to investigate if protein supplements aided the subject's ability to maintain muscle mass and leg strength during a period of detraining. But what they incidentally found is that the cross-sectional area of rectus femoris and leg press strength had no significant drop in mass or force generated retrospectively in both groups after 2 weeks of not training, suggesting that trained individuals can maintain their muscle mass if they take a 2-week period of detraining, providing that they continue with their activities of daily living. However, in 2013, a study took 7 participants and made them alternate between a period of 6 weeks training followed by a period of 3 weeks detraining, and they did this for 24 weeks. The researchers then used MRIs to measure cross-sectional areas of muscles, and what they found is that after a 3-week period there was a significant reduction in the size of the muscle. Obviously, this data doesn't tell us at what point within the 3 weeks there was a significant drop in muscle mass. However, we can surmise that it happened between the 2nd and the 3rd week using the other studies we've already discussed. And according to researchers Fisher and Steele, in their review of evidence-based recommendations for hypertrophy, they advise that 3 weeks is the maximum time frame you can take away from training without fear of atrophy. But one question that none of these studies address is the muscle loss true atrophy, or is it something else? Some experts claim that this isn't true muscle loss, but rather loss of glycogen and water stored in the muscles. Though this hypothesis hasn't been researched, there is research coming out of the European Journal of Sports Science suggesting that hypertrophy resistance training produces significant long-term increase in intracellular water. Furthermore, cellular hydration maximized by exercises that rely heavily on glycolysis. So with this being said, if some time away from resistance training did reduce intracellular water and deplete the glycogen stores, it would explain the quick rebound effect, also known as muscle memory, is so quick after a short time away from resistance training. Because with this theory, we would expect that the stores would refill quickly once normal lifting resumed, restoring that full muscular appearance. So based on the science, taking a period away of up to 3 weeks is not going to be as detrimental as you may have thought, providing that you continue with your activities of daily living. In this illustration, you can see that normal daily activity is further away from high muscle loss potential than bed rest. This is because most day-to-day activities require us to use most of our muscles. Even just being upright requires us to use our anti-gravity muscles to maintain our standing balance or sitting balance. But what is more encouraging is that multiple studies have found that reducing your training volume by as much as 1/9 is enough to maintain your muscle mass for an average of 32 weeks. Obviously, there's going to be variation between individuals with regards to how much is lost, but it's fair to assume that taking a deload week here and there isn't likely to have a huge effect on muscle mass for the majority of people. The next factor that's going to dictate whether you lose muscle during a time away from your resistance training is your calorie intake. Unsurprisingly, your calorie intake is going to influence how much muscle you can maintain during a time away from the gym. When you consider that muscle tissue will burn between 7 and 10 calories per pound per day as opposed to fats 2 to 3, it's clear that people with more muscle mass have a greater demand for calories. Furthermore, in a recent study by Alan Aragon and Brad Schoenfeld, they found that a sustained calorie deficit compromises muscle potential by inhibiting muscle protein synthesis and molecular anabolic signaling, whereas being in a calorie surplus provides the ideal condition for promoting muscle growth, suggesting that a long-term calorie deficit will lead to muscle loss. Therefore, it's suggested to eat at maintenance calories or even a slight calorie surplus if your main goal is to avoid muscle loss. This is especially true if your training capacity is limited. A rough estimate to calculate your maintenance calories is to multiply your weight in pounds by 14 to 16, depending on your activity level. Sedentary individuals should multiply their weight by 14, whereas very active individuals should multiply their weight by 16. And obviously you want to find where you are in between those two. If you think you're moderately active, then do it by 15. Following this, monitor your weight, and if your weekly average weight maintains the same, then you probably found your maintenance calories. If not, adjust accordingly. So if you find your weight's going up, take some of those calories away. Similarly, if your weight's going down, increase your calorie intake. The last factor that's going to impact how much muscle you maintain during time away from the gym or your training is your protein intake. It is recommended that individuals consume roughly about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So for example, if you're 160 pounds, then you want to consume approximately 160 grams of protein. So in conclusion, the best way to maintain your muscle mass during a time of detraining is to remain as active as possible, even if that's just continuing your activities of daily living. Eat at a calorie maintenance level, not a calorie deficit, and potentially even a slight surplus, and ensure you consume roughly 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. But if you can't follow these recommendations due to illness, commitments, or anything else, all is not lost. This is because muscle memory is a real thing. If you look at this example, this man went from 200 pounds following 7 years of training down to 165 pounds following a 2-month period of bed rest and only consuming calories through IV, to the last picture where he is 200 pounds, the same weight he was before he had the breakaway due to illness, and you can see that he regained all his muscle mass and also was able to put on the weight. But what is amazing is it didn't take him 7 years, it took him 2 months, demonstrating the power of muscle memory. The exact mechanism is currently unknown at the time of making this video, but I can speak from personal experience that this phenomenon is definitely true. and find that I bounce back very quickly after a time away from the gym, providing that when I get back to the gym, I am consistent with regards to my training and my diet. So there you have it, guys. If for whatever reason you need to take time off away from the gym, it's not going to be detrimental to your overall gains, and all is not lost because the hard work you put in before the break was definitely not in vain, and you will get it back quite quickly providing you follow these recommendations. If you've enjoyed this video, guys, you know what to do. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and also share the video if you think someone else would find it useful, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, peace.